Hello, I have a question for you. How can we improve the health, well-being, and/or life chances of adolescents and young adults in our community? Go ahead and think about it. What are your answers? I have a poem here that I wrote, which is the response to my answer. Take a look at the picture that accompanies the poem, and you might be able to see what it's about. If you look at this picture, you'll get an even better view of what I mean. Today, I would like to talk to you about combating sleep deprivation in a gifted South Korean high school. Adolescent health concerns through the lens of learning. My name is Carrie Armbruster. My inspiration for this small project is the Coursera MOOC Global Adolescent Health from the University of Melbourne. Why should we talk about sleep in the first place? Well, most people seem to understand that sleep is important for our bodies and for our health too. Now, what about adolescents though? 1 out of every 4 people on the planet is an adolescent. As humans live longer, the second decade of life is becoming as critical as early childhood has been in years past. Habits developed in adolescence will have implications on adult well-being. So, in short, what is the problem? Adolescent students are not sleeping enough, and their learning is suffering because of it. Let's take a look at this a little more. Let's take a quick glance at this problem. A study in 2010 indicated Korean high school students slept roughly 6.5 hours per night, which is well below the recommended 8 to 10 hours. Students who do not sleep enough have multiple risks for loss of brain tissue, memory problems, and poor focusing. How do we understand this problem better? One way is to use the Global Adolescent Health Conceptual Framework provided by Patton and Sawyer. This takes a look at the social determinants of health as well as risk and protective factors in order to better understand puberty's social role transitions as well as the hate-related behaviors and states that lead to better adolescent outcomes. What is contributing to the problem of sleep deprivation? First, we can look at social determinants of health, which are the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. Secondly, we can look at risk factors, which are elements that predict an increased likelihood of problems. In order to gain a little bit more perspective on the lives of high school students in South Korea, I invite you to take a look at this short 11-second video. Let's take a look at the social determinants of health. Korea has a very heavy emphasis on education that begins in childhood and continues well into adulthood. Oftentimes, sleep is sacrificed in order to handle this pressure. High school, specifically in Korea, begins very early in the morning and ends in the late afternoon. However, students still stay at the school in order to do self-study. Sometimes they'll have cram school and private lessons after that. And of course, by the time that they're done, it's almost midnight and they'll have to wake up again early in the morning, just like you saw in the video if you watched it. Risk factors are another influence on sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation is more likely to come as a result of the following. That includes poor time management skills, poor sleeping habits, consumption of energy drinks, and stressful events or times like exam periods. Let's go a little bit further and think about some general benefits of sleep. Most people realize that sleep allows us to get our energy back, but it's also very good because it allows our body time to rebuild and repair tissues that have been damaged during the day. It's also a moment when the body releases hormones that assist our growth. Sleep has many effects on learning. Students who do not get enough sleep have a weakened immune system and are more likely to get sick. When they're sick, they won't be able to learn. Sleep deprivation also has biological effects. First, we have very poor brain and body development from hormone release, or the lack of it. Also, brain toxins build up when we don't sleep. These will have adverse effects on our learning. Sleep deprivation also affects our ability to concentrate in class, and therefore our academic performance. Finally, sleep deprivation also affects our memory. When we don't sleep, our brains are not able to take information from our short-term memory and store them into our long-term memory. Patton and Sawyer use a modified version of Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological model in order to better demonstrate the influences on human development. We'll take a look at these levels of influence from a global to an individual perspective. Globally, sleep levels vary quite a bit across adults. Workers in South Korea sleep the least out of OECD member countries. Looking at this from a national perspective, South Korea is a highly connected, technology-rich society. It is also collectivistic and hierarchical in its social structure. South Korea has an intense work ethic, and this is seen not only in the workforce, but also in the ways that students study intensely for their education. Closer to home in my school, My students have an intense 3-year program that is full of academic studies, professional research, volunteering, and leadership. Lastly, it's appropriate to take a look at the individual context of the students. Boarding school students, like the students at my school, often manage their time poorly due to a high level of freedom. Students also need to manage their extracurricular club activities as well as their social lives. All of these things will affect the amount of sleep that they get. In order to better combat sleep deprivation, I propose to use the Global Adolescent Health Accountability Framework in order to help school leaders make improvements in the school itself. The Global Adolescent Accountability Framework has 4 steps that are supported in the center by the work of young people. The steps are monitor, communicate, govern, and implement. My new policy recommendation requests concentrated effort from all stakeholders to ensure that adolescents receive the minimum daily recommended amount of sleep for their age group. There are 3 possible ideas for this. The first idea involves direct instruction of metacognitive strategies. Students usually are sleep deprived because they need more time to study. So, helping students study better will allow them to study less. Schedule changes are also another possible way to assist students get more sleep. My freshman students have an obligatory morning taekwondo class. However, moving that class to the afternoon would give them more time to sleep in the morning. Improving resting opportunities is another way to help students get more sleep. The dormitory access is limited during the day. Changing this would be a great way to provide some sort of authorized siesta so that students could rest in the midday. With these 3 ideas in mind, it's also important to apply the youth-infused portion of the accountability framework. This means in the monitor step that the students need to help assist with data collection and perhaps survey their sleeping habits. In terms of communication, student council and participants in group presentations will be able to offer their voice. Third, the students will be allowed to assess how the school is proceeding in its programming changes. And then finally, student representatives will sit on committees and councils that will allow them to co-participate in these changes. The facilitators. What will help us? Parents, homeroom teachers, student council, and even the World Health Organization have input, daily contact, elected representatives, and resources that will allow us to make these changes possible. There are, however, some barriers that can hinder progress. For example, existing policies about dormitory use will require administrative committee approval in order to be changed. This type of change will take time, and that time is affected by the traditions of the school. Whatever changes we decide to make or not make, we always need to keep in mind that adolescents' input is key. Professor Zulfikar Bhutta from Aga Khan University in Karachi, Pakistan, has a mantra that goes, "Nothing for us without us." In short, this means that any time that we make or do something for adolescents, we need to consider their voice. As we begin to wind down this presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. This document is an attempt to ensure the proper healthy development of young people so that they are allowed to make autonomous decisions and have greater participation in society. My final message is that in the age of student agency and personalization, we're already realizing that we need to meet individual needs in the classroom. Most of us are doing this academically. However, I do feel that it's necessary to focus on students' collective needs in the future. This includes their health. Based on the UN Declaration and the power that they have over adolescents in their organizations and schools, adults have a legal and a moral obligation to assist in this collaboration. Regardless of where we live in the world, health and learning are 2 very important goals that we always need to keep our eyes on. Thank you for your time and attention to the needs of young people. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you a pleasant sleep and sweet dreams tonight.